Hello, and welcome to the Spicy Pod Sleep Stories. I am Michael, and tonight, a man who should only exist on the page walks into her life, and the pull between them is undeniable. In the quiet of the library, he finds her. And what begins as curiosity turns into a connection neither of them expected, a spark that could rewrite everything they thought was possible. The library had not been built for daylight. Its tall windows were narrow and high, admitting only pale ribbons of sun that turned the air to gold and revealed every drifting particle of dust. The shelves rose in shadowed columns heavy with cracked leather spines, and forgotten titles, their gilt letters dulled by time. The place smelled of paper, ink, and something faintly sweet, like stories that had once been held close to someone's chest. She preferred it that way. Lena Marlowe worked at the long oak restoration table near the back, where the light was softest and the silence deepest. She had steady hands, patient hands, the kind required to mend torn pages and coax faded ink back into legibility, without disturbing what had once been written in urgency or love. She told herself she loved the craft. She told herself it was enough. Most of the manuscripts that came through her care were unremarkable. Sermons, diaries, obscure histories of towns that no longer existed. But occasionally there were love stories, melodramatic, breathless, filled with declarations written in looping script by authors who believed passion alone could make something immortal. Those were her favorites. She would never admit that to anyone. The manuscript arrived without ceremony. No catalog entry, no record of origin. It was discovered in a sealed crate of neglected acquisitions wrapped in linen that disintegrated at her touch. The cover bore no title, only a faint impression where one might have once been pressed in gold. When she opened it, the first page whispered, not audibly, not truly, but something about the crackle of the spine felt aware. She ignored the sensation. The handwriting inside was elegant but forceful, the ink dark and surprisingly intact. The story began mid-scene, as if she had intruded upon something already unfolding. He stood at the edge of the balcony, the city breathing below him. He had always known he was meant for more than this life. Lena's lips curved faintly, dramatic. She turned the page. The hero was named Theo Arden, described only in fragments. Sharp jaw, restless hands, eyes that carried both arrogance and something dangerously close to loneliness. He moved through the pages with purpose, every action precise, every word deliberate, and every line about him lingered. She found herself reading more than she intended that first evening. The library lamps flickered to life as dusk deepened, and still she sat there, fingers resting lightly against the margin, as though she could feel the warmth of him through the ink. Ridiculous, she marked the fragile edges that needed reinforcement, noted the slight warping near the spine. The manuscript was unfinished, ending mid-confession. "If only you could see me," he said, "you would understand that I have never belonged inside these walls." Lena exhaled slowly, melodrama again. "And yet," she traced the final sentence with the pad of her thumb. The ink felt slightly raised. That was not unusual. Old ink sometimes did that, but this felt recent, as though it had not fully settled. She closed the manuscript carefully and locked it inside her drawer for the night. The next morning, she noticed it immediately. The final line had changed. She was certain of it. She unlocked the drawer with hands that were suddenly less steady than usual and opened to the last page. The sentence no longer read, "I have never belonged inside these walls." Instead, it said, "I have never belonged inside these pages." Lena stared at it for a long time. She had read it twice the night before, 3 times. She could still hear the rhythm of the original phrasing in her mind. Inside these walls, not pages. She told herself memory was unreliable, fatigue, distorted detail. She had stayed too late. Still, a prickle moved slowly down her spine. She flipped backward through the manuscript. Everything else remained the same until she reached a paragraph halfway through the 2nd chapter. There in the margin, written in smaller, sharper script than the rest, was a line she did not remember restoring. "Are you reading carefully?" Her breath caught. The ink looked wet, not glossy, not smudged, just alive. She leaned back in her chair and laughed softly under her breath. Stress, isolation, too many hours among dead authors and fading dreams. "Very clever," she murmured to the empty room as if speaking to some absent prankster. "But I'm not so easily startled." The library gave no reply. Dust drifted. The clock ticked. She closed the manuscript again. But that night, when she returned to her small apartment above the river, she found herself thinking about the balcony scene, about the unnamed hero staring down at a city that did not know he existed, about the way his voice had been written, low, certain, restrained, about the final line. "I have never belonged inside these pages." She imagined him stepping forward, imagined what he would look like beyond description. The slope of his shoulders, the weight of his gaze. Her fingertips tingled at the memory of tracing the ink. She slept lightly. When she returned the next morning, the drawer was already unlocked. She was sure she had locked it. The manuscript lay open on the table, waiting. Her pulse quickened, though she could not say why. She approached slowly. The pages turned as if stirred by a draft. though the air was still. And there, at the very end, beneath the altered final line, a new sentence had appeared, written in the same bold hand as the hero's dialogue, but unmistakably different from the rest of the narrative. Direct intent. You touched this page last night. Lena's breath faltered. She had. She remembered the exact spot where her thumb had rested. Slowly, almost unwillingly, she placed her fingers there again. The paper felt warm, not hot, just warm. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. That's impossible. The silence stretched, and then the ink shifted, not dramatically, not violently, but as she watched a single word form beneath her fingertips. I know. Lena jerked her hand back as if burned. Her heart pounded hard enough that she could feel it in her throat. This was no simple restoration project. The dust in the library seemed to hold its breath. The shelves loomed closer, and for the first time since she had begun working there, Lena felt something watching her from between the pages. Not menacing, not cruel, curious, hungry. The manuscript lay open before her, the ink settling into its new shape. I know. She swallowed slowly, and against all better judgment, she turned the page. Lena Marlowe did not speak to books. She repaired them, cataloged them, preserved them, but she did not speak to them, and books did not answer. Yet the manuscript lay open before her, and at the bottom of the page, in unmistakably fresh ink, were the words, "You linger." Her pulse beat hard in her throat. She had not imagined the previous line. She was certain of that now. Slowly, she lowered herself into the chair. This isn't possible, she said quietly. The library did not respond. The shelves stood in patient silence. Dust drifted lazily through a shaft of pale light. Lena leaned closer to the page. The ink was dark, settled, real. She swallowed. If someone is playing a trick, she continued, forcing steadiness into her voice, it isn't amusing. Nothing. Her gaze moved to the margin note she had found the day before. Are you reading carefully? Her breath thinned. She placed her fingertips lightly against the paper again. Warmth met her skin. Not imagined, warm. She pulled back sharply. No, she whispered. The page remained still for several long seconds. Then slowly, almost gently, the ink began to form new letters beneath the previous line. You touched this page again. Her heart slammed against her ribs. I'm not touching you, she said quickly. Your paper. The answer appeared beneath her protest. You trace my face when you read. Heat rose unexpectedly to her cheeks. I do not. You pause at my mouth. Her fingers curled instinctively. She had done that. The description of the hero's jaw had been so precise that she had followed the ink without thinking. It had been a professional reflex, nothing more. "I study structure," she said, firmly. "Line weight, flow, that's all." The response came almost immediately. "You linger." Her breath grew uneven. "You were written to love someone else," she said, grasping for logic. "You have a heroine, a plot, dialogue." The ink darkened as new words formed. "I was written to speak those words." The shift startled her. He was no longer responding in fragments. He was speaking. Lena's throat tightened. "That is impossible," she said. "I was written," the page continued. "I was given lines. I was told where to stand, when to confess, when to kneel." The letters pressed deeper into the paper, but I never felt them. Silence stretched thickly around her. "You're fictional," she whispered. "I was." Her hands trembled. "That doesn't make sense." "I have repeated the same scene for years," he wrote. "Balcony, confession, devotion, the same heartbeat, the same kiss that never reached skin." A chill moved slowly down her spine. "I don't understand," she said. "You read me differently," the ink formed. "You touch me as if I exist." Her breath caught. "That's absurd." "You hesitate at my mouth." Her fingers flattened against the table. "You were written to love her," Lena insisted, though her voice had softened. "I was written to say I loved her," the page corrected. The distinction made her pulse jump. "And now?" she asked before she could stop herself. The manuscript remained blank for several long seconds. Then, "Now I am beginning to choose my words." The library felt smaller suddenly, closer, as though the shelves themselves were listening. "You can't choose anything," she said. "Not yet." The ink trembled faintly. "But I'm trying." A section near the top of the page flickered in her vision. The earlier paragraph, the balcony scene, looked lighter somehow, less certain. "You're changing the text," she breathed. "Yes." "How?" "I do not know how to remain inside the sentences when you look at me that way." Her pulse stumbled. "I'm not looking at you anyway." "You are." The words formed slowly, deliberately. "You look at me as if you expect me to step forward." The air felt suddenly thin. "That's impossible," she whispered. A pause. Then, "Turn the page tonight." Her gaze shot to the edge of the manuscript. "There is no next page," she said. The answer came darker than the rest. "There will be." The silence that followed was heavier than before. Lena stared at the final line for a long time. Her heart would not slow, because she knew something with absolute certainty. When she had cataloged the manuscript the first night, she had counted the pages. There had been no continuation, no blank sheet waiting beyond the confession. As she carefully lifted the final page now, she felt resistance, thickness, as though another sheet had formed overnight. Her breath trembled. Very slowly, she turned it and found a page that had never existed before. Lena returned to the library the next evening with a mixture of dread and anticipation. The manuscript rested in its usual place on the oak table, the strange new page waiting like a secret. Her fingers itched to touch it, but her mind insisted on caution. She approached slowly, her steps muffled by the thick carpet that had dulled the sound of decades of footsteps. The library smelled of old paper and wax polish, of everything that had ever been preserved within its walls. She reached for the manuscript. The page turned easily under her fingertips, and then the words appeared. "You're back," they said. Her breath caught. She had not imagined it. "I had to see if you returned," she whispered to herself, almost afraid to speak it aloud. "Of course you would." The manuscript replied, "I noticed it the moment you set foot here." Her pulse jumped. She ran her fingers along the margin again, tracing the words like she had the first night. "This can't be happening," she said. "It is," came the answer. "I feel it too. The pull between what was written and what might be real." Her head spun. You're aware?" "I am," he said. "I was written to obey, to exist only within those pages. But now, I am aware of you, and of myself." Lena's fingers tightened over the paper. "You remember the story? Your lines? Your confessions?" "Every one," he whispered, though the letters pressed into the page like they were audible. "But I never understood them, not until you began reading." She swallowed hard. "Reading doesn't give you life. It gives me you," he replied simply. "Every time your fingers trace my words, every time you linger over my thoughts, it awakens something I never knew I could feel." A shiver ran down her spine. She looked around the quiet library, but she was alone, save for the manuscript. "I don't know what to do," she admitted. "Neither do I." The words formed gently beneath her fingertips. "I was written to fall for someone else, to obey someone else's plot. But now, I am learning to choose." Her fingers hovered above the page. "Choose what?" "Choose my words, choose my actions, and choose you." The intensity of the line struck her in a way that no printed word should. Her pulse raced. "Oh, but that's impossible," she said. You're not real." "Am I not?" he asked. "I feel, I respond. I know the warmth of your touch on these pages. I know it as surely as you know your own heartbeat." She leaned back slightly, trying to collect herself. "And yet, you are just ink." "Not anymore," he said. "I am learning what it means to be something more. and I do not want to return to the pages that trapped me. Her chest tightened. Then, what happens now? Now? He paused, the letters forming slowly, as though savoring the words. Now, we see if I can step beyond them. Her fingers brushed the page again, trembling. You could vanish. If I vanish, he said, it will be because the story demanded it, but if I remain, it will be because you helped me choose it. Her heart hammered. And what do you want me to choose? To let me exist, he said simply, in your world, outside the ink, outside the story. Lena swallowed. Do you want me? The manuscript seemed to pulse beneath her fingers. I want you, not the lines I was written to say, not the plot I was meant to follow. You. A tremor ran through her hands. The warmth beneath her fingertips felt alive. Not a page, not ink, a presence. And if I let this happen, she asked. I will learn, he said. Learn to be real, learn to be awake, learn to feel beyond the story. But I will need you. She exhaled slowly, trying to steady the chaos in her chest. I don't know if I can, she admitted. You already are, he whispered. Every glance, every touch, every moment you spend with me. This is your choice. You are already helping me become something more. For the first time, Lena realized that the manuscript no longer contained only a story. It contained him, his awareness, his longing, his first hesitant steps toward life beyond the page. Her fingers hovered above the words again, trembling. She felt as if she were on the edge of something impossible, something dangerous and exhilarating. And the last line formed beneath her fingertips, a promise rather than a question. Tonight, I will learn to step beyond the margin. The library was silent, dust drifted in lazy spirals, but Lena could feel the pulse of the story, of him, of something that was no longer just ink. And for the first time, she wondered if she might be ready to let him out. The library was quiet, but it felt different that evening. The fading sunlight slanted across the shelves, catching dust motes and golden beams, and Atlanta's heart felt impossibly heavy with anticipation. She had spent the entire day waiting, almost afraid to touch the manuscript again, afraid of what might happen if she did. Her fingers hovered over the page, trembling slightly. She took a breath and whispered, "All right, show me." The letters formed slowly beneath her fingertips. Tonight, I will step beyond these lines. Lena froze. Her eyes widened. The words were different from before, no longer just a promise, but something urgent, almost alive. A sudden draft stirred through the library, though the windows were closed. The manuscript shook lightly under her hands as if the pages themselves were breathing. Then a sound, soft, impossible, echoed from behind the shelves. She spun around. A man stood there. He was exactly as she had imagined him, yet far more real. Broad-shouldered, dark hair falling slightly across his forehead. Eyes that held both confusion and something dangerously like longing. His clothes were slightly out of place, like he had walked out of another century. But the presence he carried was immediate, solid, undeniable. "You," Lena's voice faltered. "How?" "I think I've finally learned," he said slowly, as if testing his own voice. "I'm not on the page anymore." Her hands went to her mouth. "It's impossible." "Perhaps," he admitted, stepping closer, the floorboards creaking beneath him. "But here I am, and I need you." Lena's pulse raced. She wanted to step back, to tell herself this was absurd, and yet every instinct in her body refused. She could feel the tension, the weight of him, as though he had always been real, but hidden just beyond her perception. You're Theo Arden," she whispered, testing the name aloud. "I am," he said, his gaze sweeping over her with something raw and unguarded. "I don't understand half of this world yet, but I know I need you." She took a step back instinctively. "This isn't safe. You don't even—" "I know," he interrupted gently, almost reverently. "I don't even know what safety means here, but I've read every line I was ever given, and none of them felt real. Until now." Lena's hands trembled. "And me?" "You." His voice dropped, rich and intense. "Every time I felt your touch on the pages, every thought you had of me, I began to feel as if I could exist beyond ink. You made that possible." She blinked. The manuscript lay open and on the table, its pages still trembling as if responding to his presence. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to," he said, his eyes softening. "I only need you to understand that I'm here, that I am real, and that I want you, if you can." Lena's breath caught. She had spent months alone in the library, surrounded by books that were silent and predictable, yet here was a man who had been written to exist, now standing in flesh and blood, looking at her as if she held the key to everything he could become. He stepped closer and she felt the warmth radiating from him. She began, then faltered. "You do not have to speak," he whispered. His hand hovered near hers, hesitant, testing boundaries he had only read about. "I've known words meant for love, but I've never known it until now. I don't want to force you, only to show you what we might have." Lena's fingers brushed the edge of the page where his last line had appeared. She felt heat rising, a sense of something inevitable in the way he watched her. He knelt slightly, not in submission, but as though offering her a choice. "If I fade back into the manuscript," he said quietly, "it will not be because I did not want to stay. It will be because I have not yet earned the right to be here. But I hope I hope you will let me remain. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She felt every emotion, the fear, the wonder, the thrill of something impossible, folding together. Her voice trembled when she finally spoke. Then, stay. Relief and something warmer passed across his face, and in that moment, Lena understood. The manuscript, the magic, the impossible act of crossing from page to world. It had all led to this. He rose fully, standing before her, closer than she thought she could bear. I am here, he said softly, almost reverently, and I will remain if you allow me. I do, Lena whispered, and for the first time in her life, the library felt like it was holding its breath, as if the books themselves had been waiting for this moment, waiting for the lines to become real, for love to step from the pages into flesh, for the story to truly begin. Theo Arden moved through the library as if the space itself were new to him. Every scent, every sound, every subtle movement of air seemed to demand his full attention. He touched the shelves cautiously, brushing his fingers along the spines, and blinked at the sunlight that fell unevenly across the floorboards. Lena watched him from her chair, her heart still hammering. She had expected shock, confusion, maybe awe, but not this quiet intensity, this almost childlike fascination with everything around him. You're really here, she said softly, not the manuscript, not the lines. You. I am, he replied, voice low, steady. It's disorienting. Every detail is sharper than I imagined. The texture of wood, the smell of paper, even the air feels different. And yet, I've never been more certain of anything in my life. She hesitated, unsure of what to do with the strange pull she felt toward him. And the manuscript? I remember it, he said, every word, every margin note, but it doesn't bind me anymore, not truly, not while I can breathe and speak and choose. He stepped closer and Lena felt warmth radiating off him in waves. You are alive, she murmured, and yet you're learning to be. Exactly, he said, his gaze holding hers. And I want to learn from you about this world, about everything. Her chest tightened. It's not an easy world. I don't care about easy, he said quietly. I care about real, and this is real. For a moment, the library was silent except for the faint ticking of the clock and the flutter of dust in the sunlight. Theo tilted his head slightly, eyes lingering on her hands. You've touched me through pages, he said, and now I want to feel your presence in every way I can. Lena swallowed, feeling heat creep up her neck. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. You don't have to rush, he said softly. I have never experienced the world this way. Touch, sight, sound, everything overwhelms me. But I know I want it. with you. She found herself reaching for the edge of the table, steadying herself against the surge of emotion. You remember all the words from the manuscript, right? I do, he said. Lines that were meant to seduce, to confess, to claim, but I never understood them. Not until now. And now, when I speak them to you, they are mine. Not written, not dictated. Chosen. Lena's hands trembled slightly as she traced the outline of a book on the table. Then, tell me something that's yours. He smiled faintly, slow, as though tasting the words before speaking. I am learning to want, he said, to desire what is here, what is real, and that is you. Her breath caught. Me? Yes. He took a careful step closer. I have never touched anyone, never known a presence beyond ink and imagination. But now, his voice softened. Now I wish to know you in every way I can, without fear, without constraint, with honesty. Lena felt her pulse quicken. And the rest, she asked? The rest of you? What you were written to say? He hesitated as though weighing the weight of the words against his newfound freedom. Those lines were scripts, he said, fragments of desire that belonged to someone else's imagination. But I am not that man anymore. I am mine, and I am here with you. Her fingers grazed the manuscript, and she felt a faint warmth from the ink, as if it acknowledged his presence. And you want me? Yes, he whispered, stepping closer still. I want you, not as a story, not as a character bound by plot, but as a man who is learning to be real. And I hope you want me too. Lena's hands tightened into fists, half to steady herself, half to hold onto the intensity radiating from him. I don't know if I can, she admitted. Theo reached out slowly, almost reverently, and rested his hand lightly near hers. Then don't, he said softly. We'll move forward together in our own time. I'm patient. I can wait. For the first time, Lena felt the weight of his sincerity, the gravity of his desire, not just for connection, but for choice. She realized that the manuscript, the magic, the impossible crossing from page to world had brought them here. But now, the story would be written by them, and slowly, inevitably, she let her fingers hover closer to his. Not because she was certain of what would happen next, but because she wanted to know, to feel him, to begin. The library had grown quieter over the hours, as if it too were holding its breath. Sunlight slanted across the worn oak floors, illuminating dust motes that swirled lazily in the still air. Lena Marlowe sat at the restoration table, the manuscript open before her, yet she no longer touched it. Her eyes kept straying to Theo Arden, who had been moving slowly among the shelves, studying the volumes with wide, cautious interest. This world is overwhelming. he said softly, turning toward her. His hands hovered near a shelf, fingers brushing the spines with a reverence that made her chest tighten. I did not realize how textured everything is, how real it feels. You're adjusting, she said gently, trying to keep her voice steady. It's a lot to take in. I'm learning, he said, and there was a strange determination in his tone. Every sensation is new, every sound, every scent, but I am aware of you in a way that I cannot describe. Every movement you make, it draws me closer. Lena's breath caught. Closer, she asked quietly, unsure if she wanted the answer. Yes, he said, stepping a fraction nearer, closer in ways that the manuscript never allowed. I am not bound by the lines anymore, but I'm bound by you. Her fingers twitched over the edge of the table. Bound. The story never prepared me for this, he admitted. To want someone, to feel them, to understand that desire is choice, not fate. And yet, here I am, wanting you. Lena swallowed, feeling the heat rise to her cheeks. And you think I feel the same, she whispered, almost to herself. I can see it, he said, his voice soft but confident. The way your hands linger near the manuscript, the way your gaze doesn't leave me. You're as curious as I am. She shook her head, heart hammering. I'm cautious. Good, he said, a faint smile brushing his lips. Caution is wisdom, but curiosity, his voice lowered, intense and magnetic. Curiosity is dangerous. She couldn't help but shiver. He took another step closer, close enough that she could see the fine line of his jaw, the dark sweep of his eyes, the slight curve of his lips. Theo, she breathed, almost involuntarily. Yes? He asked, his tone gentle, coaxing. Her fingers itched toward his hand. I want to reach you, she admitted, but I don't know if I can. You already have, he said softly. Not with force, not with intent. You've reached me with your presence, with your touch on the manuscript, with your attention. But if you want, he extended a hand slowly, reverently. If you want, you can touch me here, now. Her heart pounded. She hesitated, caught between fear and the magnetic pull of his gaze. Slowly, trembling, she placed her fingertips lightly on the back of his hand. He inhaled sharply. That's it, he whispered. That's all I needed to feel. Warmth surged through her, a shock of sensation that made her knees weak. Theo shifted slightly, closing the distance just enough that their bodies almost brushed. His eyes were locked on hers, searching, daring, and tender all at once. You're real, she breathed, her hand still resting on his. I am, he said, and so are you to me. Every heartbeat, every thought, every hesitation, I can feel it all, and I want it. I want you. Her fingers moved along his wrist, tentative, exploring, testing the reality of him. This is new, she said. I know, he said, voice low, intimate, and I will learn with you, slowly, carefully. But I need to know what it is to exist beyond the page, and I need you with me. A shiver ran through her. She swallowed hard. I think I want that too. He leaned slightly closer, enough that she could feel his breath on her skin, warm and steady. Then we will learn together, he whispered, and we will see how far this can go. She nodded, heart racing, realizing that nothing could be measured by the rules of the manuscript anymore. This was uncharted territory. Something raw and real. Something alive. And for the first time, Lena Marlowe felt the exhilarating certainty that the impossible had become possible because they had chosen it together. The library had grown darker as evening settled, the golden light of sunset replaced by the soft amber glow of desk lamps. Shadows stretched across the tall shelves, curling around the volumes, and the quiet was heavy with anticipation. Lena Marlowe felt the weight of it in her chest, the kind of tension that made every heartbeat echo in her ears. Theo Arden stood near her, fingers still brushing along the edge of a shelf, his eyes occasionally flicking to her, dark and intent. He was learning the world, but Lena knew he was learning her too. Every glance, every pause, every subtle movement. You move through this place as if you own it, Lena said softly, a teasing lilt in her voice. But you're still figuring out the rules. I am, he admitted, stepping closer. But I don't need rules for you. His gaze locked on hers, warm and magnetic. I only need to understand the space between us. Her fingers itched again, this time not for the manuscript, but for him. The space. It's complicated, she murmured. Complicated, he repeated, tilting his head. I think it's simple. I want you, and I know you want me too. Lena's breath caught. I'm not sure yet. You don't have to be sure, he said, voice almost a whisper. I only need you to let me be here with you. She felt the warmth of his presence draw closer, the faint brush of his shoulder against hers sending a thrill through her. Her fingers trembled as she reached for him again, brushing along his arm, testing, lingering. I feel everything differently when you're here, she admitted, her voice barely audible, like the world itself changes. It does, he said, stepping nearer so that the space between them seemed to vanish. Because you're here. Because we're here. I'll feel things I never could in the manuscript. Every heartbeat, every hesitation, every breath you take. Her chest tightened. Theo. Yes? He asked, tone coaxing, magnetic. Her fingers moved slowly along his wrist, tracing the line of his arm, feeling the warmth that radiated from him. I want to see if this is real, she whispered. It is, he said, his voice low and certain. Every inch of it. And I will match you, slowly, carefully. But I need to know you, Lena. I need to feel you without the ink, without the lines. Only us. Her heartbeat surged as their bodies nearly brushed. And what if I'm afraid? Then I'll be here, he murmured. I'll move only as far as you let me, and I'll wait for the rest. Her fingers moved to his hand, tracing the back with a lightness that made him inhale sharply. I think I'm ready, she admitted. Then let me in, he whispered. Let me close the gap between what was imagined and what is real. The distance between them was gone now. Her hands traced the curve of his forearm, exploring, learning, testing the reality of him. He leaned closer, breath warm against her cheek. Lena faltered, lost in the intensity, the gravity of this moment. I am here, Theo said softly, voice trembling slightly with restrained emotion. And I am yours, if you will let me be. Her lips parted, almost instinctively. I do, she whispered. A faint smile brushed across his face, the tension easing just slightly as he lifted his hand to gently cup her cheek. Then we will see, he murmured, how far this can go, together. The library seemed to exhale with them, shadows and light curling around the two of them, holding them in a private, suspended moment. Lena felt the heat of anticipation, of desire, and the undeniable pull of something alive, something impossible yet completely present. And for the first time, she realized that the story, both theirs and the manuscript, was no longer written in ink. It was being written in touches, glances, and breaths. They were close enough now that every heartbeat mattered, and nothing had to be certain, because the possibility itself was enough. The library was silent, save for the soft rustle of pages and the distant hum of the city outside. Night had fallen completely, casting a warm, golden glow over the wooden shelves and the stacks of manuscripts. Lena Marlowe stood near the table, the manuscript closed but still glowing faintly under the lamplight, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Theo Arden stepped closer, slow, deliberate, eyes dark with intensity. The months of being bound to ink and imagination seemed to have melted away. Here he was, alive, real, and entirely his own. I never imagined, Lena whispered, her fingers brushing over the table, that you could exist like this, that we could exist like this. I didn't imagine it either, he said, stepping closer until the space between them was nothing. And yet here we are, and I know one thing for certain. What's that? She asked, breath trembling. That I want you entirely, not as words on a page, not as a fantasy, but as you, and I don't want to let go. Lena's hands moved of their own accord, resting lightly on his chest. The warmth of him made her chest tighten, her pulse racing. "I want you too," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "All of you. And I think I'm ready to see what that means." Theo's lips curved into a slow, almost reverent smile. "Then let me show you." He lifted a hand, gently cupping her cheek, his thumb brushing along her jaw. Lena leaned into the touch instinctively, closing her eyes for a fraction of a second. The heat between them was electric, charged with longing, curiosity, and the strange thrill of something that had started as a story, but had become far more. "I've wanted this since the first line," Theo said softly, his voice low and intimate. "Since I felt your presence on the page, and now I want it for real." Her breath hitched. "Theo." No hesitations, he whispered, leaning closer. "No lines, no script, only us. Here, now." Their lips met, soft at first, tentative, exploring, learning the contours, the warmth, the reality of each other. Lena's hands found their way to his shoulders, then around his neck, pulling him closer. Theo responded instantly, as if he had been waiting for this moment his entire existence. The kiss deepened, slow and consuming, a careful dance between desire and patience. Every touch, every heartbeat, every subtle movement felt impossibly heightened. Lena felt the rush of emotion, the proof of Theo's reality, and the certainty that their story had been written, not on paper, but in these moments of connection. When they finally parted slightly, both breathless, Theo rested his forehead against hers. "You're real," he murmured, "all of you, and I want to stay." Lena's chest heaved, her fingers threading through his hair. "Then stay," she whispered, voice trembling with relief and desire. "Stay with me, don't go back to the pages." "I will not," he promised. "I am here, I am yours, and we will write our story together. From this moment forward, beyond the manuscript, beyond magic, beyond anything that ever tried to define us." A smile curved across her lips. "Then let's begin." Theo kissed her again, slower this time, savoring it, committing it to memory. The world outside the library faded, leaving only the warmth of each other, the pulse of their shared heartbeat, and the quiet knowledge that the impossible had been made real. The manuscript lay closed on the table, pages still faintly shimmering, as if acknowledging that its story had fulfilled its purpose. But Lena and Theo's story had only just begun, written not in ink, but in touches, breaths, and the undeniable magic of being together. And for the first time, both of them knew that a story could be more than words. It could be lived, shared, and loved. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's story. Good night and sweet dreams.